bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate the world, peaches ripe.
And I'm talking from a male point of view, a cis male point of view. And I find that some things that I'm still learning and some things that I have a pretty good stance on. And what I'm finding is that when I'm learning things, I get more attacked than I get knowledge and data. And I know that it's not a woman's responsibility to teach a man. But when some men are so ignorant that they're asking questions, why might that be a bad thing? And I've noticed that it is a bad thing to some feminists. Some, and I'm saying some. And how go ahead, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Comment without knowing full context. I think when men come into feminist spaces and essentially start telling feminists how to be feminists, that's when hostility occurs.
Oh, totally. I think something needs to be said about, okay, so I'm 46. I was raised in a very, very toxic masculinity household, very, very much so. It was part of my generation. It was like food for the being at that point in time. Maybe just in my area of the country or whatever, but I've had to de-learn a lot of that stuff, even my own vocabulary. And I find that I'm still tripping up on it a little bit. And when I do, I just get, people are not nice. And it's like, I think there needs to be more said for people like me and other people that are trying to learn, trying to bring to the table what we can, and I think we shouldn't be shunned for it.
I mean, that's really nice to say. I'm sorry, I think you just got to take it on the chin. Like me as a white woman, when I enter women of color spaces, regardless of how they treat me, I just take it on the chin, because when there are aspects of your identity where you are an oppressor, it can be I think a lot of privilege can be ignorance. And so really kind of taking a back seat when you're in these spaces as an oppressor in an oppressed space is just the best form for me. Again, I don't have a lot of context on what you're talking about. But
so what I'm actually talking about is the comments right here, right now. Now, I understand your point of view when it comes to some of us should just take it on the chin, because we've been delivering those hits since the beginning of time. And I am sympathetic to that. Mm-hmm. I am also sympathetic to the fact that, because people like me aren't exposed to a lot of real life when it comes to life changing as the world goes round, as we seem to get closer and closer to being equal, I hope. And I put that, I hope we get closer and closer to equal. I just think that, again, look at some of the comments you have in your own chat right now. That's very discouraging for people that are trying to be part of the solution.
Here's the problem. I'm going to give you a different example that's not charged with oppression. In school, did you learn algebra?
Yep.
Did you learn trigonometry?
Yep.
Did you also learn calculus?
Yep.
How well versed are you in calculus right now?
Extremely well versed.
Okay. Well versed enough to have a conversation with somebody at MIT about it?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. If I, who have only learned algebra, walked up to you, who is well versed in calculus, and said, hey, stop talking to that person from MIT and teach me trigonometry and algebra, please, what would your reaction be?
Could you restate that again? My dog was messing with me. I'm sorry.
You're currently having a conversation about the interplay between calculus and quantum mechanics with a friend of yours. that works at MIT and consistently teaches and does lectures there. While you're having that conversation and you guys are pushing the boundaries of calculus and quantum mechanics, I walk in and I say, hey, I've only learned algebra. Can you guys stop what you're doing and teach me trigonometry and, pre-calc and calculus, please? What would your reaction be to that?
That's a really good question. I would have to stop, like you guys are trying to stop me and say, hey, you're only speaking in algebra when you should be speaking in calculus. I get that. At that same moment in time, I'm going to also relate something in calculus that will be immediately like connected to the trig that person's thinking. I'm not going to turn them away. I'm going to make them wait, but I'm not going to turn them away, and I'm most certainly not going to talk smack about them like some of these people in chat.
The reason you're not going to talk smack about them is because it happens like rarely. Like nobody would have the hubris to walk into MIT and say, hey, I only have a 7th grade education in math. Can I partake in this conversation? Nobody would do that. Now, if people did that like 20, 30 times a day while you were trying to work, after a while, you may say, listen.
Absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from. Absolutely.
So now let's add the weight of oppression to that and see if we can maybe understand why when somebody has like a rudimentary understanding of the topic and they go to somebody who has an advanced understanding of the topic, who is being questioned constantly to explain the topic to people who think that feminism is just men bad, they may have a reaction that's not requisite with our expectations.
Well, that was not my entrance of feminism bad. Like, that was not it. I
know it's not yours, but think about
all right, cool.
Now think about people that walk into MIT that don't know how to add 3 + 5. That's what happens all the time in these spaces, right? I'm just being direct. So
no, I totally get it, and
you may have like a working understanding, but while you have the algebra understanding, people in these spaces constantly have people come in who have zero understanding, and they have to deal with that all the time. So now after 100, 150, 200 people who come in and ask the same question, when I usually have like a monologue for this about how the internet and supercomputers in our pockets came to be, but in the interest of time, I'll skip that and say when we have supercomputers in our pockets and all of the literature is out there, I mean, it just takes time. Then you can understand why people just get tired of the question.
I totally understand that. And I guess that fall directly upon me because I actually like the human interaction. And like, I am not a cis white male. I am a cis native. And like, I understand some of the things that people run up against. It's just that like I'm trying to bridge these bridges amongst ourselves on what I would consider the left side. Because like I still have a lot to learn, and if I have a lot to learn about everything, because that's just my nature. I want to learn, and like I just wish that number one that I knew how serious this live was and how much debating you do, because clearly I didn't, and I guess again that's my part, and I totally can get this constructive criticism you're throwing at me. Be that as it may, we will still run into this problem. And I think that, like, instead of chastising people like me, maybe give a little bit more leniency to our ignorance, because within my ignorance, I'm still trying.
I'm looking this up. Kenzie, what do you think the tuition is at MIT annually?
I don't know. It depends if you're a legacy admission.
On average, $57,986.
I was going to shoot for 75. Well,
and here I am, 7th grade maths, like in my head, asking for free education from this quantum mechanics professor and this advanced calculus professor. And then they say, what the hell are you doing? 100 people have asked me for this free education. Go to school. And I go, can you be nicer to me? That's wild.
So, okay, I get what you're putting down. I see that you would rather muddle the waters a little bit more. I
Muddle.
see.
No, here's the thing. Here, I'm playing with my food, but I'm just going to say it directly. If you really want to know stuff, you go know stuff. Like your wanting to know stuff should not be affected by me being nice to you or Kenzie being nice to you or anyone else being
You
nice to
think
you.
I'm going to stop
So know
trying to
stuff.
know this? No, you guys are
Well,
not a
you
barrier in my
used
way.
you used the word discouraging. If anybody is discouraged from knowing stuff, then they didn't want to know this stuff. Like I love knowing stuff. If somebody tells me go read, I'll go read, or I'll go find something else, or I'll enroll in something. But I don't
Okay,
care if
then
somebody is.
here's a better question so we can stop this pissing match. What things should I read from your point of view and the host's point of view that would give me the best grasp of what I'm asking for?
I would start with a Google search on the 4 waves of feminism, since that is a free way of going through
The four
learning
waves
about.
of feminism.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that a new term for you? Just out of, I'm not, this isn't a
Fair
slight. I'm
question.
actually asking.
It is a fair
The
question.
four waves of feminism is a new phrase to me. I have never heard it, and I like
Okay.
to educate myself.
Cool.
Yeah, that's
So
really
yeah,
fundamental feminism.
I'm sorry, host. What?
That is a very fundamental aspect of feminism.
In college, I was driven to do hard sciences, and I like when you do hard sciences, they kind of take some of the stuff away from you that you
Sure,
could
I'm
have
just
put.
saying that if you're looking at feminism as this arc, you're at 101. If you don't know the
Okay. All right. Hey, guys. All right. Thank you very much. That's a 101 book that I should read, and thank you very much for that title. Is there any others that are
if you
important?
would like, you can
just
join the Discord, and I'd be happy to give you recommendations. But I think I have another guess. Thank you.
yeah, and also just to be fair, that wasn't a title. That was just a Google search. That was just a thing that you should type in a search engine of your choice.
How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Happy Women's History Month. Shout out all women, especially the ones,
Great.
Should we get into it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I am actually, I don't know if I'm a feminist. I love women, though. Let me preface this by this. I love women. Okay. Let's start with abortion, yeah?
Yeah. Am I frozen for you guys?
Yeah, you're hella, yeah. I don't know what you're
Can
looking
you
at.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, we'll just give it a minute and see if TikTok catches up. Okay. Yeah, what's your take on abortion?
Okay. First of all, can I hear your take on abortion? Am I about to debate you or debate the other guy? Who is this end of a species guy?
This is my friend Jeff. He's a co-host of mine. But I don't
Okay.
I don't know how much he'll talk on abortion.
Okay, that's fine. I'll talk to you then. So what's your stance?
I'm pro-abortion.
Pro-abortion?
Yeah.
Is there,
This one's
sorry? Wait, chat, can you guys hear her or am I just tripping?
Hold 1 second. We're trying to fix.
Sorry, let me talk to chat then.
okay. I think I'm back.
What's your stance? It's in her board? Bro, it just says pro-abortion. That's like a very wide spectrum.
Yeah. So I think abortion is healthcare, and people should have access to abortion.
Okay, and are you a part of the camp that says like, oh well, at 9 months, a C-section is technically an abortion, so you're pro
I
this,
mean,
yeah?
it would be defined as an abortion. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, for the purpose of this conversation, do you mind using the word abortion to mean like the termination of a pregnancy, as in the termination of the fetus?
Why?
Because that's really the thing I'm concerned about. I have no quarrels with C-sections. I have no quarrels with like IVF. I have no quarrels about any of that stuff. Just about
Well,
like
I mean,
when it's,
sometimes C-sections, it is essentially a stillbirth. But why don't you give me your take?
okay. So here's my issue with abortion. First of all, I think there should be abortion up to a certain point. I think the conversation is, when does that point stop? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people usually say 21 weeks, as in after 21 weeks, you should not be allowed to terminate a pregnancy. And I mean, you should not be allowed to like, I don't want to use the word kill a fetus because I feel like that's very morally charged. I'll say, like terminate a fetus, right? They'll say you can't really like, why are you taping your eyes? I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, my bad. So the question is, when is it not appropriate to terminate a fetus, right? A lot of people say 21 weeks. I would probably push that like a few weeks earlier because I think the thing that we value in humans are a conscious experience. So if we can demonstrate that there's a possibility of a conscious experience within the fetus, then I don't think it should be terminated. You know? And I think to be safe, the earliest point in which we can say there's a conscious experience could be like 15 to 17 weeks. So I'm not really against abortion. I just don't want to I just don't know about 21 weeks. You know?
So you just want to talk about essentially like less than 1% of abortions?
I mean, sure, yeah.
Why?
Because it's an important thing.
In what context?
In what context? What?
Why is this 1% what you want to focus on? You said it's an important thing. Do you think that there are many people who get elective abortions after 15 weeks?
I don't think so.
Okay. So this isn't a problem within society?
Well, 1% of abortions. Let's say, like, how many abortions happen per year? I don't have the number on hand.
I want to say it's like somewhere around 800,000 in the U.S.
Okay, well, 800. That means 8,000. That would be 8,000 cases
Right,
in
but
which.
those aren't typically elective.
Okay, what percent of the what portion of the 8,000 is elective?
It's hard to say. There's not a lot of data.
For the sake of argument, would you say half?
Like I said, it's hard to say. There's not a lot of data.
A fourth, like a tenth, like in any case, it's still like.
I just think I think issues with abortion laws essentially restrict doctors.
Sure.
Because then it becomes, is this person, the reason they want to terminate, a valid reason?
Well, I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I think a woman should be able to terminate her pregnancy within the window that we say is legal. Whenever she, like, for whatever reason, it's not my business. Do whatever you want, type shit. I just think that.
Yeah, I think that complicates things when we have legislation regarding this type of healthcare. I have a friend, when we were in our 20s, she really, really wanted a baby. And unfortunately, when she got pregnant, she found out, I want to say at 26 or 27 weeks, that essentially her son would not survive. He was born, he was developing to where his his brain would never fully develop. If she went into birth early, prematurely, they said that he might survive birth, but would essentially suffocate shortly after because he wouldn't be able to breathe. And we lived in Montana, and even though abortion is constitutionally protected in Montana, she had to go to Colorado to essentially have what many deem like a late term abortion, where she had a needle inserted into her stomach and then essentially gave birth to a stillborn. And I want to say, like, with travel expenses, all of these things, I don't remember the exact amount, but I want to say it was upwards of $5,000. And I mean, this was a devastating experience for her.
That's terrible.
And she had to travel in order to get access to this healthcare. So it really, not only is it a traumatic experience, but there were, I would say, costs that were burdensome.
Yeah.
And then she was obviously like delayed because I don't think she had the procedure until like 31 or 32 weeks because of essentially everything that it took to schedule. Yeah. So that's why I'm very hesitant to have any kind of regulation.
Okay, well, personally, I'm having a moral discussion about abortion. How that is later implemented into law, I hope it's like implemented correctly in a way that protects all women, right?
That's a nice like wish, but like I'm really more interested in pragmatic discussions when it comes to abortion.
Well, this is a pragmatic discussion.
Really do affect people with the capacity for pregnancy. So
how is this not pragmatic? Why is my point not pragmatic?
Because you don't care of how it's placed within, like, we're not having the discussion of how it's placed within society or how it's conducted. You just want to talk about the morality of it, which to me is secondary.
Well, actually, the thing is, like, when we talk about law, the morality is primary because usually our laws are based off of our moral prescriptions. So we have to establish some moral prescription and then we can talk about the law, you know?
Not necessarily. A lot of laws are placed out of utility. Like, is it immoral to jaywalk?
And maybe in some sense, yeah, but in a lot of cases, especially in cases of
morality when it comes to jaywalking.
Yeah, there is. What do you mean? You're putting other drivers in danger. You're putting yourself in danger. There's like you can have a moral discussion.
No, you're not. Like, there are many instances where people jaywalk where there is no risk.
Okay, sure, but
you can say any action you do has like risk to harm others, or like adultery. I would say adultery is immoral, but we don't necessarily have like federal prosecution regarding adultery.
You would say adultery is immoral?
Sure, why not?
Oh, that's crazy. No, would
adultery be immoral?
Huh?
Why wouldn't adultery be immoral?
Why do you think adultery is immoral?
Because you're cheating on your partner.
Oh, sorry. I think adultery would also suggest that you like have sex out of wedlock. That's also considered adultery, I think.
I don't think so.
I thought you were saying that like if you have sex before marriage, that's like immoral.
Yeah, it says. Well, I don't even think like it needs to be married person. I would just say, a person you're committed to. When you're having voluntary sexual intercourse with another person, you're not essentially cheating on your spouse. Yeah, I would say that's immoral, but we don't have.
Yeah, I would consider cheating also immoral,
Right. So, no, I don't think that laws are necessarily based on morality. They're based on utility.
I think a lot of them are. Like, I don't think contract law is going to be based off of morality, but I think a lot of laws are based off of, like, morality. Like, the death penalty, whether we should have it or not, that argument strictly comes from, like, our moral prescriptions, right?
Not necessarily. I don't think the state should have that power.
It's not a power. It's just that like
it absolutely is a power.
To dictate laws?
Giving the state the authority to issue the death penalty is a power.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like write laws. No, that's true.
And I don't think we should give the state that power.
That's fine. I don't believe in the death penalty mostly because of moral reasons. But yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a big tangent. If you don't want to talk about the moral aspect of abortion, that's fine.
Okay,
Do you want to talk about a different topic?
sure.
What's like your favorite one to talk about?
They're all good.
Sorry, I'm not American. I don't know what a like body count doesn't matter. What does that mean?
Body count refers to essentially how many sexual partners you've had.
And you're saying it doesn't matter in like what regard?
I don't think you can assess if someone is an adequate long-term partner just based on their body count. I don't think it's a criteria of merit or relevance.
Okay. Can I ask you a question in regards to like body count then?
Yeah.
Okay. So for example, let's say there's a person that wants to stay celibate before marriage. That's their own choice. Do you think it's okay for them to narrow their do you think it's fair to for them to have that criteria in which they only want another celibate person when they marry?
It would, no, I don't see any justified reason.
Because I usually hold the belief that you can have a lot of criteria as long as you're consistent with yourself, you know? I think if you want to worry about being a virgin, then your spouse being a virgin when you get married, you should also be a virgin. It doesn't make sense for like a man to like sleep around and expect his wife to be a virgin, you know? If you really want a virgin wife, you should probably also be a virgin, you know?
Sure, I can understand the non-symmetrical view as being hypocritical, but again, I don't think it's a qualifier or a categorization that has any merit or validity.
Well, you would recognize that in some cultures it is valuable, no?
Just because like some cultures value it doesn't mean that it's a valuable metric. That's the word I've been looking for, metric. Like there are cultures who believe in like genital mutilation. I wouldn't support that because it's a cultural aspect.
Yeah, that's also infringing very clearly on a woman's right to self-autonomy.
Right,
Well,
again,
this one isn't
just,
really infringing on anyone. This is just their opinion.
right. I don't think a culture like justifies the reason for valuing that metric.
What about like religion?
Again, I think religion as a whole is just meant to control people, especially like patriarchal religion, which I would argue like also puts women as second-class citizens. And I think that purity culture and ideas of modesty very much dehumanize, objectify, and over-sexualize women.
Well, I think if modesty is a value valued across the board, like for men and women, I don't think that's necessarily true.
Objectifying and over-sexualizing people's bodies.
Well, you could say that, I guess, but then that's not really a feminist issue then, if it's across the board for men and women. If men are being...
Well, just because like it affects women, and I would argue that in order for women to be liberated, they would need to be free from forms of oppression, even if that oppression affects men.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. That's a good sentiment, I guess. I don't know if I'd consider like organized religion oppression though. In some cases,
I very much.
in all cases, you'd consider organized religion to be. Why so?
Because I think it's essentially based in control and fallacious logic.
Control and fallacious logic.
It's based in control and uses fallacious logic.
What do you mean based in control?
It's designed to control people.
Designed.
Right, so it depends on what religion that we talk about. If people want to have like some type of mythology. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when we look at the organization and essentially like having faith in things that clearly like are outside of the physical world and like contradict logic and reason, and give like what is perpetuated as objective moral prescriptions, then yeah, I think we run into a lot of issues.
I mean, there's a possibility you don't, though. So,
Can you give me an example?
you want to, like an example of a society that's progressive
Yeah,
and
I'm against the dogma, is what I would say. Yeah, well, you said there's a possibility, there's not. And
there's not a case in which a society that's really religious isn't oppressive.
correct.
Is there any society like that that exists now?
What do you mean?
What's like a largely atheistic society, like ignoring like Northern Europe?
Well, I think like secular humanism would essentially be like the most non oppressive system, but you know, like a majority of the world is within like a capitalist structure, so I would argue that that's an oppressive system. I'm sorry, I must not be understanding the question.
It's fine. I don't really want to debate religion. I think it's like a huge tangent from feminism. What does SA stand for?
Sexual assault.
Believe SA. Why is that on there? Why is that like a?
Because I think that rape culture is very prevalent, especially within like global society, to where a majority of like femme presenting or women who are essayed are not believed or blamed for their outcome.
Oh. That's kind of sad. That's really sad. Wages for domestic labor. What does that mean?
So domestic labor is essentially like child rearing and house care, and that women should be, or anyone who stays home should be paid to do those things.
Paid by who?
If we're living in a capitalist society, I would argue the state.
The state should pay women for domestic labor?
Yeah, well, anyone for domestic labor, yeah.
Like in a communist society or like right now?
Well, in a communist society, if we don't have currency, then there would be no need for wage.
So social society?
If we're living in a socialist society, then yeah, that would be a wage earning position.
Like what value are they creating for that labor though?
They're raising future citizens of society, and they're also making it so that their significant other can participate in the paid economic sector.
Significant other. Yeah, I guess. Sorry, I've never really heard this idea. Okay, you know what? It's been such a good conversation. I'm sorry if I was unfamiliar with some of the terms. I'm not very you know, I don't come from an English speaking country.
Fine. I appreciate it.
So have a good day.
You too.
Happy Women's History Month. You know what I'm saying.
Appreciate it.
Oh, I don't know how to go down. I'm gonna be real.
Oh, okay, I'll abort you. Aborted.
I didn't say nothing, but I was looking up like stats for elective late term abortions, and using the most generous math, it's a tiny, tiny number.
What'd you come up with?
If I was super like maybe less than 500, like if I was super generous with the figures, I'd have to do a lot of like weird Bayesian like guesses.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just not data on it. Essentially 500 elective terminations later in pregnancy. And I can't find the source on it, but Auntie Killjoy, her first name is Jessica, I can't remember her last name right now. She does abortion every day. She said that a lot of terminations later in pregnancy are actually children. Because it usually takes people so long to notice, and children aren't necessarily aware of what's happening to their body. Yeah, Jessica Valenti, thank you. So yeah. It's wild when you think about children having abortions later in pregnancy. And it's probably because some of them, their bodies just can't handle it. If you get pregnant before the age of 15, the amount of calcium that the fetus leaches actually can create skeletal issues for the rest of your life. Because it takes calcium from your bones when your skeleton is still growing.
Kenzie, that's fake news. You couldn't possibly substantiate that. You're just making that up. How did I do? Did I do the man thing?
You even did the white man thing.
Yeah, that was per year, Elizabeth. I'm looking up, I was looking up the statistics for 2023. And I found a couple of studies. But all of the numbers get super fuzzy when you try to drill it down. Probably because there isn't any utility in drilling it down.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
How you doing?
How are you?
Good. I wanted to ask, I don't remember exactly what it was you said, but it kind of sounded like you were attributing the patriarchy in a sense to religion. Do you think were you saying that that's kind of the problem, or how it started, or is it just an element of it?
Yeah, Abrahamic religions are a result of the patriarchy.
Oh, they're a result of the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying patriarchy led to the religions?
Correct. As prior to the patriarchy, gods that were worshipped were female.
Right. Well, both, right?
No, female.
Like,
Because that's essentially how men were able to perpetuate the notion that they are the superior sex.
but where was that turning point? Where?
It's hard to pinpoint down, because so many sources say so many different things. It was, I would say, shortly after the advent of agriculture, because men also started using essentially the hoarding and denying of other forms of resources as a way to perpetuate. And it really depends on what civilization we look at. There were some writings from Mesopotamia in I want to say 4,000 or maybe it was 8,000 BC. I'd have to look at my notes that indicate hostility towards women. We can see with the Iliad or the Odyssey that there's also hostilities toward women, but Sparta, also women had rights of ownership of property. So the most consistent I've seen is I want to say aspects of Roman Empire.
Okay.
So I would say roughly around 3,500 to 5,000 BC, or 5,000 BC to 3,500.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know too much about that, back that far. So you're saying that's kind of where the patriarchy started, and then modern religions
It
stemmed
depends
from
on
that.
like your region as well.
Right. Okay. Well, how are you saying that modern religion like stemmed from that though?
Well, those are all the times that like Judaism, Islam, Christianity came into fruition.
Well, it was after you mentioned it, you know, what you said around 3500 BC. Well, these modern religions came, you know,
I
after,
said that was the like roughly the start of patriarchy.
right. Yeah, but like, so how did like the modern religions, so we agree modern religions, Christianity, Muslim, two big examples that were started, you know, in the 1st century around to the 5th century is like when this 5th, 6th century when they started getting big. So like, how did that, like, from patriarchy, how did that come about? Like, what's the connection there?
It essentially, religion was perpetuated to show the importance of man over the importance of woman. Like, men had to make man a god to essentially establish gender superiority.
Okay. I can see that for, I guess, for like Muslim and Christianity. It makes sense. All right, fair enough. I guess, I mean, I wanted to ask you that. I can debate these topics too if you want, unless you have somebody else requesting right now.
Your call.
Okay, so you were talking to him a little bit about the body count. Like, I'm curious, like, do you, so you're saying it doesn't matter. Do you find this problematic is what you're saying essentially? Like it shouldn't matter? Because I would argue it does matter just because people care about it, right? But you're saying it's like, this is a problematic preference to hold?
Is-ought fallacy.
Say again?
That's an is-ought fallacy.
And
I haven't seen any valid reason that someone should value body count. I think it's essentially a way for people to classify other people as either deserving or undeserving of love or shame, humiliation, so on and so forth.
for sure. Then I guess that would beg the question of, is like, does a preference need to be logically justified?
I don't consider it a preference. I consider it a philosophy.
Really? How do you gather that?
Like a preference is like I prefer brunettes over blondes. There's no rhyme or reason.
Right, but wouldn't you argue there's no reason for preferring a certain body count?
No, there's definitely a philosophy behind that, especially when men talk about body count. Essentially, is like they don't want a girl who's run through because then they'll receive like shame and humiliation from other men. Obviously, she doesn't respect herself. It won't propagate the nuclear family. Like these are all moral prescriptives that people are placing on body count.
Okay, but what if there's like a woman that would prefer a guy with a higher body count?
I don't know what body count has to do with it. I could see someone wanting experience like in relationships, but I don't know like why body count would be a preference or a desire.
Well, wouldn't that show like more sexual experience?
Not necessarily. Like just because you have variety doesn't mean you have volume.
I see what you're saying, but again, that kind of goes back to like, there doesn't need to be a reason necessarily. If there was a girl that preferred a guy that had a certain amount of bodies, maybe not a lot, right? Like just had some experience as opposed to a virgin. Like if we look at this scenario in a vacuum, is this problematic?
Why would we look at it in a vacuum? And again, like when we look at like people's intentions, if this is just for like a hookup, then no, I would argue that, you know, someone can have a lot of experience and still be bad in bed and not know how to pleasure women.
I agree, but
So I don't think that'll really like be any information that's justified for you. And if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, I don't think someone's body count tells you if they're compatible to you and that you have the same goals and desires within the relationship.
Right. I agree, but you made the argument that it was more of a philosophy, but I think you were looking at it in the lens of like purity culture. Whereas if we had a girl that preferred this, that had this preference of a guy with experience for whatever reason, like she could be completely unjustified in her reasoning. To me, that still would be a preference, and then I would find it valid.
I would not, because again, he's had multitude of sexual partners does not mean that he's a good lover. Like, why would she? What information would this give her?
It wouldn't. That's the point, is that there's not a reason behind it. But there's not a reason behind preferring a certain hair color either.
There is a reason, though. Like, why you said she wants experience for, like, if you want experience, there's a reason, correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that could be a reason, but I'm saying in a scenario in which there is no reason. She just wants this.
That is a reason. I want an experienced person because more likely I will have a pleasurable experience.
Okay, yeah. All right. Hello, Michaela. You just hanging out, or?
Yeah. Do you have a counter to anything Kenzie's been saying?
No, I mean, I just think, like, again, I was still referring to, like a person that had no reason. Like it's unjustified that they prefer this, but they do. And you used the argument in the scenario of a man wanting a lower body count in a woman, that it's a philosophy and not a preference. But in the opposite scenario, which I gave you, in a scenario in which this woman has no reason, would it then be a philosophy still and not a preference? Does a preference have to have a reason?
They do have a reason because there's a stigma around people with a higher body count. It'd be disingenuous to believe that's not true.
Okay. I guess, I mean, I still think that there could easily be a scenario where there isn't really a reason. I mean, you're saying it's stigmatized that, for like, again, from the perspective of a woman to a man, a guy having a higher body count, maybe, and her having this preference, you're saying there's a stigma towards that?
So what difference between somebody with a high body count and somebody with a low body count that will affect you in a relationship? What is the reason?
Like, for all intents and purposes, none, right? But what I'm saying is, somebody's hair color also has no effect, but that could be a preference. So what's the difference?
There's a physical difference between somebody with dark hair and someone with light hair. So you can like one color more than the other. But what is like the physical difference?
Well, it doesn't have to be physical, does it? If it's like an idealistic difference, like it's just this, it could be delusional, but like this idea a person may have in their head. Right? And
The difference is the stigma between the two. That's what people say. Or they think that the person is somehow morally corrupt for having a higher body count. So those are the reasons that they give. And so we're trying to understand why they believe that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying.
Like, do you believe somebody with the higher body count is like less deserving in a relationship? Like they shouldn't be in a relationship, or
No.
you don't want to date someone with a high body count?
I mean, I would prefer somebody that's closer to mine, but that's just like...
Why?
Just because, like, I feel like we'd be more so on the same page on things.
The same page of what?
Because I have a low body count.
What does your body count say about you?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, I'd say, for one, okay, for example, would you agree that sexual relations and dating and so on is more risky for women than it is for men?
In certain contexts, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would consider this, that's not to say that it's not risky for men necessarily, but regardless, you know, somebody that's maybe perhaps going through a lot of partners could be seen as risk seeking behavior, which is often like there's a genetic element to that as well. So.
Someone who is like risk seeking, I would say would engage in like unsafe or like erratic behavior, not necessarily just like how would you determine that? Because obviously you would need to know frequency.
For sure, but regardless, it's still risky, like to an extent. Like it's going to be riskier than abstinence. If you're going through, you know, a lot of partners, whatever the case, there's going to be people that are safer than others, but they're still taking an element of risk.
You take an element of risk when you get in a car.
Right, but I don't think it's to the same extent.
What are you basing that on? I mean, the most likely person, like, are you talking about SA or like DV?
Well, for sure, that's an element of it. That's why it's especially risky for women.
Like, typically don't come from like necessarily hookups.
Right. Well, relationships, if anything, I would care more about the relationships than the body count. Somebody that's been in a lot of relationships, that tells you so much more than body count does.
So body count doesn't matter.
You agree with us?
Yeah, that's great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like I said, it's not the biggest deal. I think something like more so, I would look at relationships and like how many partners they've had that they've been romantic with.
Why
I think
not how they treat their partners in those relationships?
Or why not like who they are?
Also that.
Well, for sure, this is a thing where I'm more referring to the initial courtship of a person, not necessarily like after getting to know them, right? So I could give somebody a chance that maybe has these traits or has been through a lot of relationships or whatever the case. I'm just saying that more likely I'd be more inclined to give, like statistically speaking, to give somebody a chance that was lower on that end, that hadn't been through so many.
So you're judgmental.
Of course, everyone is. To an extent. I mean, this is like
right.
self-preservation
So when we
tactic.
talk about like judgments, I think there are some that are reasonable and some that are unreasonable. And I would say that you essentially establishing someone's entire personality and personhood just based off of one metric is very immature. And I would say shows that you're not like emotionally equipped to be in a long-term committed relationship.
Well, I never said that this is a metric I use to base their whole personality off of. Like I said, it's just one element that you would look at in the courtship of a woman.
Right. Like, do you acknowledge that when you're young, like you don't really know who you are?
Yeah, to an extent.
And that a lot of people kind of explore their sexuality and relationships so that they can understand and get to know themselves better and what they like and don't like.
Yeah.
So why would you place prescriptions on how someone learns about themselves?
Because there can be negative side effects to this this search or this exploration, so to speak.
And that's true with anything.
Yeah, sure, but
I think this is a display of male entitlement. You feel like you're entitled to her loyalty. So if in the past she was not, like if she didn't stay loyal and like stay with these people, even though she doesn't want to be in a relationship with them anymore, you're now putting like a stigma and a stereotype on her.
Well, I'm not really trying to...
Loyalty, I would say exclusivity.
Yeah,
really,
exclusivity, yeah.
I'm not really trying to gender this. I mean, I'm not into guys, but like I would assume it'd be a similar concept from women because it's going to be the same thing, essentially. Right? Like,
no, I don't think that like body count tells me what your goals are. I don't think body count tells me your emotional intelligence. because people grow and learn from experience. So who they did or how many people they did is not who they are.
Right, for sure. I mean, I agree, but at the same time, and like I said, it's more so about like number of romantic partners than body count. I just think it could be slightly correlated, but that's what the only reason I would give any thought to body count. But again, it's for me, it's much more about
Well, someone's polyamorous. Was it a polyamorous relationship?
polyamorous is in like it's like an open relationship, or like what is that? What that means?
Yeah, they had a boyfriend or girlfriend, but their relationship was open.
I mean, that's what exactly are you? Is that like an analogy to?
I mean, it shows that they're capable of commitment.
Right. Well, that's not really what I'm getting at. I mean, how would that be different from?
So I'm
Like-
saying that essentially body count provides no context.
Yeah,
Right.
this off of stereotypes. If you just hear 7, what does that tell you about that person? Like if they said they had 7 relationships, what do you know about them?
7 relationships. Well, I don't know anything for sure, but again, I mean, the more relationships somebody's in, the higher chances that they perhaps would have baggage or trauma from past relationships. So it's just essentially trying to minimize these things. And like I said, that's not to say that I could find a woman that has been in a lot of
baggage and trauma outside of romantic relationships.
Yeah, of course. That doesn't disprove the point though.
It doesn't mean that if relationships don't work out, there's baggage or trauma. That's such like an Andrew Tate thing to say.
That's not what I said. That if it doesn't work out, they're going to have trauma.
What do you mean by baggage?
Well, I'm like trauma, a baggage. I don't anything that like problems could have happened and they're holding on to things from a past relationship.
Wait, so you're saying trauma is baggage?
No, I mean, I don't know how to discern the two exactly, but like it's a similar concept. Just like problems that arose in the last relationship that maybe this person is holding on to for whatever reason. And again, like I said, we go for men and women.
This is incoherent.
Why?
Because it's all over the place. There's no consistency. There's no directness of thought. Someone can have 2 romantic partners and have baggage and trauma. Just because someone has multiple relationships doesn't mean they're going to have more or less.
I know they can. I would just argue that probability-wise, it'd be more likely.
I would disagree.
Why?
Because there's no way you could show that. I would say that a lot of people have more baggage and trauma from like long-term relationships that failed.
Okay. I mean,
There's no way you can quantify a generalized experience just based on how many partners someone has had as that result. Someone can have a body count of 2 and one of like, I don't even know if like we're counting people like when they were raped, and there's baggage and trauma with that. Someone can have a partner that they got married really young at 19, had kids, and then got divorced at 24, so they only have one. And there's baggage and trauma because they thought that relationship was going to work out. And now they're a single parent because their spouse left them. There can be someone that dated a lot in college and has a very healthy relationship with their sexuality, but just didn't have the time to invest in a long-term committed relationship. And now that they're out of college, they do. Like there's no, I don't think there's any kind of data or study that you could provide me that is saying what you're saying. That is not a logical conclusion.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't have a study on this. I could try to find something, but again, I think the problem is you're saying, I mean, we'll just have to disagree just because you're saying that, yeah, it can happen. Trauma can happen, from one relationship or even not from relationships. But all I'm trying to say is that would probably be more likely if they've had multiple long-term relationships.
What's a long-term relationship?
But not even long, maybe like, I don't know exactly what range I'd consider it, but like, it could be
again, I would need some kind of
4 to 6 months to, something like that. Like even in a range like that.
I just don't understand how it's a negative thing. Oh, sorry, Kenzie.
Like having baggage and trauma.
Like I don't think that's a logical conclusion. Go ahead, Michaela.
I don't understand how it's a negative thing to have experience or know what you want in a relationship. Just because someone had a lot of relationships doesn't mean they were bad relationships. So maybe that person learned a lot about themselves, know what they want in a partner. And so they have a clear direction on where they want to go in a relationship. And so you can see if y'all are more compatible versus if they were more naive about what they want out of a relationship.
Yeah.
So I said a negative thing.
Just, real quick, everybody's in the comments saying 4 to 6 months. I meant like a long term and going as short to like 4 months. Like, I wasn't saying like that's long term.
A lot of a lot of people, I'm not saying like this is what you're saying, but there's a lot of predators, right, that prefer people that have less experience in relationships. So it's easier to manipulate them within relationships because they don't know how to look out for red flags. So I don't understand like the positive to stay in society that you should be less informed on how relationships work and how they should be and have less experience. And that's a good thing. I think that's a bad thing.
Well, it'd be a bad thing if you're planning on manipulating somebody.
I know, but you're saying that the woman that you prefer is a woman that is more vulnerable because she has less experience in relationships. And I'll be asking why. That's
not why. It's simply to, avoid the scenario of them bringing baggage or trauma into the future relationship. It's not to like find somebody that's vulnerable and that I can manipulate.
How is better understanding what you want out of a relationship baggage or trauma? Like you don't know what they got out of those relationships. You're assuming it's baggage and trauma, but what they could have gotten out of it is a positive experience because they know what they want and what they are compatible with. What if that's the scenario, that they better understand themselves? Then does it not matter how many relationships they were in?
Yeah, no, exactly. This is what I'm saying is that like, those scenarios, that could be easily the case, right? But still, because that's what I was saying is like it would still, I could easily give somebody a chance, right? That is, it has these multiple relationships or whatever the case is, and it would be fine, like you're saying. But
you think divorce is a traumatic experience?
I think it could be.
Right. So it's not necessarily like how many relationships is the context surrounding the relationship. Someone can essentially not be emotionally available, still have trauma or damage from their divorce. And that's what you find out during the courtship. If they're open and honest, so on and so forth. Again, it has nothing to do with the frequency of relationships.
Yeah, right. I mean, I agree. Like, I understand what you're saying. It's still like you're still saying that they can still have trauma from a few relationships or whatever the case is. But like, yeah, again,
every individual's experience is very unique, and to make that kind of generalization just based on some arbitrary number, I don't think it's logical. How old are you?
24.
Yeah, I think it's hard to understand the complexities of long-term relationships when you're that young.
Fair enough.
And obviously, we've gotten pretty far off body count.
Right, yeah.
But, I mean, I'm 37, and I've never been asked my body count. I don't even think my ex-husband knows my body count.
I've been asked one time my body count, and I got up and left. So, yeah.
It's funny.
If any man ever asks you your body count, ladies, like literally, block and delete, get up and leave.
It's interesting because most of the girls that I've had like longer term things with were asked me my body count, which I found interesting. but that's kind of why I brought up the first part was like in the scenario of a girl caring about it, like it's a different concept, yet people would claim they still find it problematic. And even if there is no reason, I don't think it's like invalid.
There is.
Yeah, I would say that they're very immature if they're asking you that.
You could just be curious. Like, I genuinely think they were. You think no?
Yeah, I'm saying, why are you curious about that? Like if people that ask what's your body count, they're trying to make stereotypes about you and make assumptions about your character. Those are the only people that are asking people that on dates.
Yeah, they don't really want to get to know you. They just want to tell you who you are.
Right. And even women. Sorry, Kenzie.
No, you're fine. I was just saying it's very immature.
Yeah, and even women with like a very low body count or virgins will like be hesitant to tell people that, because then they'll put those women on pedestals and think that they're these pure, virtuous women that are going to be submissive and a woman of God and whatever else. And put in that pedestal, as soon as they show in any imperfection and outside of that narrative, they get shame and abuse.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I would disagree with I genuinely think the women that have asked me were like just curious. I don't think it had anything to do with like insecurity. But I mean, because you're kind of saying that across the board, if you ask, it's insecurity, that's a problem. I didn't find it to be a problem when they asked me. Like, I genuinely thought they were curious.
Do you keep count?
Keep count of my body count?
Yeah.
Not like strictly. I could count and figure it out, but
yeah, I just don't get it. What are y'all doing? Are y'all like going home and like writing in a diary?
I'm not.
I mean, do I need to like Yelp review my partners and like mail it to them later? Would that be helpful?
What do you mean?
You know, like Greg, 3 out of 5 stars, lasted long, made awkward noises.
Don't people do that though? They be putting that in their notes app. It's like a thing people do.
I think I should. I'm gonna make a burn book. You know, I will say my most consistent experience is I find men who are very well endowed to be very lazy in bed.
Yeah, I think it's a similar concept of like attractive women being lazy in bed.
I take offense to that. Anything else?
I don't know. That's about it. I'll hop down.
We're coming up.
Yep.
I don't know if he was saying like he's just had a lot of bad sex or he's like after a lot of ugly chicks. But I didn't want to ask.
I find that taller men are worse in bed, but that's just my experience. They feel like if you're tall, you don't have to do anything at all. You just have to just be there.
You know, I have read that short kings make better partners.
They do. They do.
They do. Short king supremacists here.
That's good to hear.
Great.
How tall are you?
5'8".
5'10".
Damn! 5'10" is crazy. On a woman? That's really tall. How's it going, Michaela?
I'm living.
That's awesome. Love to see a beautiful black queen living. Okay.
W. Michaela in the chat, I guess.
W. Michaela.
Yeah, before we go back to this guest, we'll do a quick show break. Thank you everyone for watching today's stream. If you like feminist centered content, please consider following as well as subscribing. Subscribers get sub-only chat access. And then if you miss a stream or want to follow me on other platforms, I also have YouTube, Instagram, as well as Discord. All links are in the bio. A great way to monetize the stream is through tips and subscriptions. As you can see, I don't accept tips through TikTok because TikTok is a fascist. So please consider Venmo and Cash App or my Amazon book wish list if you would like to gift me for my labor of love. Also, I'm sure, I don't know if Michaela's putting that in her background, but I know her, is it your Cash App?
Yeah, it's my Cash App.
Cash App in her link in bio as well. And then all the books on my Amazon wish list are around these topics. So if you want to see new and better arguments, please consider gifting me the gift of knowledge. But yeah, what's your next take? You're back for more?
I am. First of all, let me follow real quick. Because I love feminist content.
Right.
As a feminist myself.
You can't be a feminist. Are you a man?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be a feminist.
Why not?
Because you're not a woman.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What camp of feminism says that?
Radical.
Oh, okay, interesting. Never mind. So what would I be if I'm an ally to women? Or can I just like not?
Anti-sexist?
Hey, what?
Anti-sexist?
Okay, then. I'm an anti-sexist then. Awesome. Okay, cool. The thing about religion, yeah? You don't want to talk about religion? It's fine if you don't want to.
Not really.
Just for like a minute or two?
Hey, just pick anything on the board.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Just like all of these topics, you can't pick one that you disagree with.
Why do you assume I disagree with any of them?
Do you?
It does say request if you disagree.
Okay, yeah, I do then. Okay, the thing about body count, or you don't want to talk about body count? Okay. The other guy, the thing is, what he was saying, I would probably not agree with a lot of the stuff, right? But don't you think that like a high number of sexual partners is indicative of anything? Could it be indicative of anything, you think?
No.
You don't think you can draw any conclusion from a high number of body counts?
No, I don't think an arbitrary number will tell me anything about that person.
Okay. Have you guys seen the studies where it's like there's a correlation between a high number of sexual partners and then chronic illness or adverse health effects?
What study is that?
Okay, let me Google the name.
Sure.
You said chronic illnesses?
Yeah.
Okay, weird.
Okay, sorry. I can't like look at Google and the TikTok
Here,
live.
I can. What should I Google?
High number of sexual partners increase risk of chronic illness.
You know the source?
I think BMG, sexual and reproduction.
Okay.
You know what? Actually, this is very bad conduct. I'm sorry. I've probably like. You don't have time to like read the study right now. So, but I mean, I don't know. given that it was true, do you think it would be valid to have a concern about body count or no?
Well, it just says increased odds of reported cancer. So I think there's a lot of conclusions that we can come to. It says a higher lifetime number of sexual partners is associated with increased odds of reported cancer. A lot of people will come on here and say like, oh, we're having the highest rates of STIs ever. And I think it's because a lot more people have access to STI testing. Not necessarily that more people have STIs than they did before. So this says a higher lifetime number of sexual partners is associated with increased odds of reported cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue that if you have a higher number of sexual partners, you're more likely to be getting STI testing and you're more likely to be getting screenings regarding your health.
First, I mean, like you haven't really read the study. You drew that hypothesis, but in the conclusion, the researchers say that a high number of sexual partners could be used to determine like cancer risk as well.
I read that the statement I read, a higher lifetime number of sexual partners is associated with increased odds of reported cancer, comes directly from the source you gave me.
Did you read the conclusion?
That isn't the conclusion. That's the first sentence.
What's the name of the article you're reading?
BMJ Journal, the relationship between chronic disease and number of sexual partners.
Let me just read it really quick and then I'll switch.
Did you not read this?
No. I read it, but I can't read it off my phone while I'm on the live. I'm muted if I read it. If I switch to the window with the
it's
with
really
the study.
good to have two devices.
You know, that's a privilege that everyone has. But the conclusion of the one I'm reading says that there's a statistically large correlation between adverse health effects and body count for women. You know what I'm saying? And then it also says in the conclusion that the authors took into account alcohol consumption, age, weight, number of screen.
Yeah, so our findings using a more proximal outcome are in line with a large body of literature that suggests that specific STIs may lead to several cancers such as HPV and cervical, oral, penile, and anal cancers, hepatitis C and hepatitis B and liver cancer, as well as gonorrhea infection and prostate cancer. Harvard debunked it? Sweet.
What do you mean Harvard debunked it? That was a direct response?
Let me see.
Which men can get to, it acts like women are. No, I don't think women are only at risk, bro. Calm down. Men are also at risk. Women can get penile cancer, you know what I'm saying? Bro is sweating. He said women earlier. I read the part about women. There's two different conclusions for women and men.
Is this study about the amount of partners you have or unprotected sex?
It's just the sexual partners.
Yeah, number of sexual partners.
So shouldn't we take into account unprotected sex if we're talking about STIs?
In this one by, I don't know, I haven't read this full analysis yet, but I mean, there's a lot of data. It looks good. We observe no statistically significant association between number of lifetime sexual partners and self-rated health, CHD, or stroke in either sex, or with limiting long-standing illness in men. It does say in both men and women a higher number of sexual partners was associated with increased risk of cancer. So again, I would just say that's due to like.
Pray for my healing. Oh, yay. That'll work.
Wait, what does that sound?
I don't know.
I got my doctor, though. Thanks.
It sounds like you.
Is that coming from my mic?
You're highlighted.
Sorry, keep going. I don't know where that came from. My bad.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say that a lot of these can be due to like untreated STIs, like we've seen with like HPV, cervical cancer, penile cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we would say that unprotected sex is that matters, and that you should take that into account when it comes to your health. But simply
Yeah, for sure.
partners in itself does not cause health issues.
I mean, that's not what the study says. But here's the thing: the point of the why I brought that up. It's like I personally would never use body count as a metric. You know, maybe if I was like a virgin, I would, but I'm not a virgin, so like I would not like. I would not be like, oh, this woman has to have like a lower body count or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like body count's kind of like BMI or like a litmus test or any of those things where it's like they're usually like not extremely accurate, but they could be an indicator for something. It's like just like a grain of sand on the scale type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, in other words, I wouldn't bash someone for considering body count, you know? Even though I wouldn't. Like, I don't think it's invalid for someone to consider body count, you know what I'm saying?
Why is it valid?
Because there could be considerations that involve health, as the study showed, you know what I'm saying?
So, do you think it's wise to, if you're worried, to ask your partner for an STI
Allah bless
test?
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think it is wise to ask your partner for an STI test?
Of course.
Therefore, would that alleviate concerns?
I wouldn't be sure. I mean,
What do you mean you wouldn't be sure? I think you would be more sure with like health testing rather than someone's testimony. Because when we talk about body count, that's just someone's testimony.
sure,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know my body count.
You don't
My
know
my guess is around 30. But like, what if I'm way off and it's like,
Okay. You know, get it type. But yeah, I guess yeah, it would alleviate a lot of the concerns.
yeah. So I am also 37, but I will say in the last 14 years, my body count's been 2. So a majority of that was college and younger.
Yeah, we're looking for actual reasonings why we should take body count into account and that it matters. So, like, what is the reason?
Sorry, say it again.
We're looking for the reasoning why body count should matter.
Well, personally, I don't think body count should matter. I'm arguing that people should, like, it's not invalid for someone to be like, hey, I would consider body count as well.
So you agree That body count doesn't matter?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to pee. Did you have anything else?
No, not really. I want to be real.
Okay.
You know, happy Women's History Month type shit. Love you guys.
Thank you, our
Have a good
feminist
day.
ally. We appreciate you. You know,
Anti-sex.
it's so weird. Oops, sorry, person. I didn't mean to X you in the guest request. I meant to X Kashna. So if you're still here, please re-request, because I didn't mean to do that. It's weird. On this phone, I can see requests that I didn't have. Like, this phone had an extra request than this. Weird. That's true. Is that guy still here? I kicked you. How are you here?
Oh my gosh.
Hello, Charles. I have to pee really quick. Go ahead, Michaela.
Hey, how's it
You
going?
need Charles. What do you disagree with?
Feminism still here. I don't disagree with that. Believe essay victims. I believe in that. Pro-sex work. Don't believe in that. Toxic masculinity is real. False.
Okay,
Body
can you
count
like
doesn't
pick
matter.
one? Can you pick one thing? I don't need your opinion on every single
And
topic. Just pick one.
I'll debunk your claims on any of them. You pick, and I'll debunk your claim.
Just say what you want to talk about, Charles. Just pick one.
I would say toxic masculinity is real.
Okay. Why do you believe toxic masculinity isn't real?
Because what you're saying toxic masculinity, right? Well, it's not the toxic part is what it is. You're adding that to masculinity, but what it is toxic behavior.
So what's masculinity?
Masculinity is mostly related to testosterone in dealing with deeper voices. Leadership is considered masculine, you know, because see, when you call masculinity,
Okay, Charles. It's traits that are associated with men.
right? And so, what's associated with men?
So there are traits that are toxic that are associated with men.
Well, I know, but
Toxic
those
masculinity.
I know, but using your logic, a toxic woman, that means she is toxic womanism or something. I mean, you can't if a man is toxic, that's not toxic masculinity. Just like if a woman is toxic, it's not toxic femininity.
Okay,
You see, they're just
Charles, what I'm
toxic
trying to
people.
tell you is it's traits associated with men. So the traits, not simply them being a man. It's traits that are associated with men that are inherently
I
toxic.
know, but all right, do you agree that there's good men and there's bad men?
No.
Do you agree that
Hey,
there's good men and there's bad men?
Kashna, can you leave?
Just
Just exit out of TikTok. You can
come back.
Thank you.
All right, there's good men and there's bad men, correct?
No, I disagree.
So you think there's no good men and there? So are men good or bad?
I don't consider it that type of dichotomy.
Right, but the fact remains there are good people and there's bad people. There's good men and there's bad men.
No, I don't think I need to essentially have like a moral prescription on which category someone fits into.
Well, there
Because I could
are
even
there are
say that there are
clearly
good men who do bad things.
right, but overall, there's men who are more on the good side, and there's men who. So there's some men who've never committed felonies.
What
There's
is your
men who
qualification
there's
of good?
there's men who take care of their families. You know, there are good men out there.
I think your definition of good would be subjective, that one we couldn't like necessarily measure. If you're looking for a definition of toxic masculinity, those are characterized by the behaviors of stoicism, competitiveness, aggression, dominance, homophobia, and misogyny.
Right, but
Yeah, like Charles, you're not gonna.
but there are competitive men who are not toxic.
Oh, okay. So if they associate that with their masculinity, right?
No,
and
no,
say they
you-
wait.
Go
If
ahead.
they always feel like they have to compete or they're being emasculated, that is inherently toxic.
Right, but it's not toxic masculinity. That's a toxic person.
Is competitiveness associated
it is
with
when
that?
it's attributed to your.
I know, but they're toxic. They're competitive men who are not toxic. They're masculine men who are not toxic. They're masculine and competitive, but not toxic.
Sure.
You know what? I'm very intelligent. You will lose the argument. I'm just warning you. You could try, but go ahead.
Thank you for warning me. Yeah, so competitiveness, like within the context of toxic masculinity, we can see a lot within the workplace, especially within capitalism, because it's a dog eat dog world, and that essentially like microaggressions, bullying, sabotage in order to get ahead, and essentially developing a mindset where you avoid losing at all costs, because then you're seen as less than a man or a failure, would be a form of toxic masculinity.
No, that's a character flaw. That's
that
bad.
would be, that's
It's
the
called.
context of toxic masculinity.
It's bad character. Because there are masculine men who are competitive but are not toxic. So what you're
So
saying
again,
that
that's not a counter to what I just said.
Ma'am, there are competitive men with bad character and there are competitive men with good character.
No,
You're saying the
because it's
competitive
essentially
men
this
with
social aspect, like men who hold these positions are typically revered and viewed as highly masculine, achieving men, to even where their behavior is minimized or condoned.
there are highly competitive men with good character and a good code of ethics.
Again, that's not a counter to what I just said.
Oh, yes,
Are you
yes,
not
it is because
understanding Charles,
what
stop. Because you're not understanding the concept of traits associated with men. We're not talking about every single man. We're not saying that. We're talking about masculinity. What do you think masculinity is? What traits are masculine?
it's traits associated with testosterone in men. But ma'am,
No, what are the traits?
ma'am, what you fail to understand is what you're doing. You are disingenuously. You are taking
wait,
bad.
what was that word?
You are taking character. You are disingenuously taking bad character traits, right? And any man with the bad character
Charles,
trait
tell
that
us
is
what
masculine,
masculinity is.
you are
then.
connecting. You are confusing bad character with toxic masculinity just because they're men.
Well,
Just
no,
because they're men.
one second, let me respond. So the first four characteristics that I gave you in relation to toxic masculinity come from the American Psychology Association, and the last two come from Shepard Bliss, who is the man who coined the term toxic masculinity. So I didn't arrive at these based on my opinion. It's even come to a point where these aspects of masculinity, now doctors who deal with mental health are coming up with strategies so that they can help men and boys who suffer from these aspects of masculinity.
Right. You know, it's kind of similar to changing what do you call it? Gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria, just to make the people who think they're the opposite sex, just to make them feel better. So in many cases, the Psychology Association, what you're doing is they're trying to make people feel better, but it doesn't change the fact that there are men with bad character and there are men with good character. What you're doing, you're saying, well, if a man has bad character you
Charles, you're not
irrationally
following this conversation.
you irrationally
You are
associate
not
that
following this
with
conversation,
masculinity,
Charles.
ma'am.
Charles, you're just saying stuff. You're not following this
Ma'am,
conversation that
He
we're
really
having.
is.
ma'am, is what I'm saying makes sense?
Charles, one
You
second.
you
Charles, one
you,
second.
you are you are appealing
Charles,
to
one
ridicule,
second.
ma'am. That's a fallacy.
Charles, one second. One second.
You are appealing to ridicule. That is not an
Charles,
argument.
1 second. Do you think masculinity and femininity are parts of people's identity?
Identity?
Yeah.
Well, it's more of a well, men in general tend to be more masculine because they're men. Now there are some
That's not what
masculine.
I asked.
There
I
are
asked,
some
this is a
masculine
yes or
women.
no. God, this
Yeah,
feels like
yes,
yes or
I would
no.
say that's a yes.
Okay, so yes, so we can agree that masculinity is a part of men's identity. Great. Can you give me characteristics of masculinity?
Being competitive,
Okay.
leadership,
Okay.
having a deeper voice, stronger masculine features.
So you can't say masculine features when I'm asking you to define masculinity. That's
Ma'am, when a woman takes testosterone pills, her face starts to look like a man. So it's fair to say it's masculine features because some women have masculine, especially American women who try to live like a man. They develop
how do we get masculine features without testosterone?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because when study shows when women are in dominant roles, when women are in challenging roles, it signals their body to develop more testosterone. This is why a lot of American women are known to be.
Can you give me a source on that?
I'm sure you can look at. I mean, I could, but it's a lot
Well, I
of work.
want to know what you're reading because I want to read what
All
you're
right, so
reading.
fine. You could just if you just Google women in dominant roles testosterone. Women dominant roles testosterone.
Okay, do you know who the publisher is?
Sarah something. I think her name is Sarah something like that. I forgot, but it's a real study.
Her name is Sarah.
Well, I forgot her last name. But I'm sure if you look for it, you can find it.
Study. What was the study about?
It was a study about how socialization could increase women's testosterone depending on their lifestyle. And when women have a dominant roles, when women are living in dominant roles, as well as men, it increases their testosterone. But testosterone are good with men, but it can be problems for women, such as infertility problems. Maybe that's why women empowerment countries have lower birth rates. It might be linked to having too much testosterone, trying to live like a man, and having deeper voices and so on.
You're still here?
Okay, so my claim is when you call out toxic masculinity, what you're really doing is saying that masculine man has bad character. That's what you're saying. But it's
I'm
not.
saying, wait, let me tell you 1 second. Let me tell you my argumentation. Like, you don't need to tell it to me. So when we look at masculinity and femininity, these are social constructions. And essentially we prescribe them onto people based on their sex and to essentially tell you this is how society expects you to behave. So men are typically expected to be competitive, to be dominant, to be aggressive. And I would argue that within this specific society, there also becomes expectations of homophobia, misogyny, and competitiveness. Because there's 1 second, I'm almost done. And it is due to this socialization on how men are taught to behave as boys that lead to harmful outcomes, not only for themselves, but for the people around them. Like I gave you the example with the toxic masculinity in the workplace, because this is how their behavior is tied to their identity, how they are perceived as a man. They need to have these behaviors in order to be a man within society.
No, that's called bad parenting. There's plenty of parents who teach there are plenty of parents who teach their sons to be masculine without
What is
teaching
masculine?
them
What is
bad.
masculine?
We keep talking about this over and over again. You keep losing the argument, and you go back to these
Because no,
definitions. My
Charles,
my
you said
my
testosterone.
point
Wait,
is
Charles, you said testosterone makes people. Oh no. If you're in a dominant role, you'll have more testosterone, and men's testosterone makes them more dominant. Why are men dominant? Do you believe every man is dominant?
no, ma'am. You're spewing a straw man thought. You're arguing against a distorted version of my claim.
How's that a distorted version of your
I would
claim?
intellectually rip
You
you to
said
shreds,
that
ma'am.
testo-
No,
Okay, then what did you mean?
Wait,
did you
Charles.
ma'am, you argued
testosterone?
against a distorted
Charles,
version of
one
my claim.
second.
Nice try.
Charles, one second. Typically, when people have to boast how intellectually superior they are and how you're going to like rip the opposition to shreds, you're just covering up the fact that you're like drowning. my
Okay,
guy.
well, I'll just continue.
That, for example, would be
no worries. I'll
would be
continue
toxic
winning
masculinity. The fact that you need to boast on skills that you don't have is an aspect of your
All right,
talk.
I'll continue winning the argument, and we'll see at the end. You'll probably get
What
tired of losing.
measurement are you winning the argument?
Most definitely. Okay, well, as I continue winning the argument, then you will see.
Tell me by what measurement you are winning the argument.
Okay, you're the
metrics
reason
are
why
you
you're losing
following
because the
today?
only thing you could do you just go back. Well,
I'm
what does
asking
this
you a
mean? What does
question.
this mean? I'm steadily debunking.
Yeah, you're making
ma'am.
You're making
Let's
claims
focus on
that
the
you are winning the argument and that
Let's
you are intellectually dominating.
Ma'am,
Tell
let's
me
just
about what
focus.
metrics.
Let's focus on the argument,
Wait, no,
and you
you
will
brought
see.
this up. You brought this up. You brought
Ma'am,
this
let's
into the
not talk
argument.
about it. I'm going to prove
No,
it
we're
in
going to talk about
silence.
it now. We're going to talk about it now because you brought it up.
All right,
that
go ahead.
you are winning. So tell me, by what metrics are you winning?
Okay, what your claim is toxic.
Wait. Nope, that's not my claim. Tell me by what metrics you are winning.
Okay, because I'm debunking your claim that you claim that toxic masculinity is real, right? My point is the flaw in your argument is what you're doing is you are connecting bad character and any man with bad character, you're calling it toxic masculinity. But what it is simply bad. It's
That's not
simply
even
bad
my
character.
argumentation.
That's
not
the
even
flaw
Charles,
in your claim.
Charles, you
It's bad
said
character, not toxic masculinity.
This is hilarious.
Please. You said that being dominant is masculine. Did you not say that?
I'm saying when women when I mention dominant.
Oh.
So, I'm sorry, everyone. I need to. Oh, did he get kicked? I'm sorry. I need to kick everyone because I just got a violation for hate speech, which I don't know, like what was being said that, like, that didn't. Why are you still here? I have them closed. Is he still here? My God, I don't even know if I have guests or not. Like, oh. My God, I haven't been able to see him since I kicked him. Are you still here, ghost man? Requests are not off. I have 2 people in them. now they're open. I'm sorry, Sean. I know I really wanted you to talk, but this is hilarious. Hello, welcome back.
Hello. I got banned for hate speech. Wow. You can't turn off your phone, dude, and turn it back on? You turned off the app. You quit the app. I don't know.
No, I'm just gonna restart.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch. I'm so fucking cute.